Welcome to another 5 in 5. Today we're going to be looking at coastal plants and in particular thinking about how some of those coastal plants manage to cope with being flooded by salty water with the tide twice daily. We're going to be doing that in two sites, one here in Dublin Bay, and we'll also be visiting a site in Wexford to look at some of these special coastal plants. We often think of succulent plants, fleshy plants like cacti, as growing in rather hot and dry environments. But perhaps surprisingly, in this environment, close to water, we can find succulent plants. And the reason for that is the same as the problem with Coleridge's Ancient Mariner. Water, water everywhere, nor only a drop to drink. And it's because the salt water will pull the water out of the cells and disrupt the physiological growth processes of the plants. Some plants have evolved succulents as a way of coping with that. And I want to show you some of the coastal plants that are succulent today. This little succulent plant, samphire, also known as glasswort, it has been used to make glass, but it's more a niche plant in restaurants these days, a sought after food. Samphire, we usually import it from France, but it does grow on our coasts. It's in the genus Salicornia, and Salicornia has many, many species in it, and they're very, very difficult to identify. The technical identification is based on the flowers, but the flowers are so inconspicuous and small. A better way of identifying these is really by what appear to be stems. These stems are actually fused leaves, so it isn't quite leafless, although it looks like it. But in this species, they're very knobbly, these stems. Other Salicornia species, they're very often smooth. So this one is common marsh samphire, Salicornia europaea. Our next one is Sea-blite. It's an annual plant like the samphire, and we've got a little samphire going right next to it. In comparison to the samphire, this has got very obvious leaves along the stem. They're very small, but they're very succulent. Again, as with the samphire, the flowers are insignificant. So you're really looking at the structure of the plant, the leaves, which are usually greyish, sometimes greenish, and often these succulents go red at different times. You can see the samphire hasn't yet, this one has. This Sea-blite, Sueda maritima, can also be used as a salad plant. It's not eaten as much as the Salicornia, but again, it just comes in one flavour, ready salted, as with the samphire. And that's because the succulence of these plants is filled with slightly salty water, and that helps the plant balance against the influence of the sea outside. This plant here, a little bit more erect than the Sea-blite and the samphire, is grass-leaved orach, Atriplex littoralis, again a plant of coastal shores. Again, it's got these succulent leaves to combat the sea salt. The samphire, which is right here at the base, the Sea-blite and the Atriplex, they're all in the spinach family. And that's one reason why probably some of these families is very good to eat. They've got a lot of extra nutrients and minerals there for us. Atriplex isn't really eaten very much, but because it's in the same family, the same spinach family, it's potentially a useful food. Atriplex species, again, they're very, very difficult to identify. This one is a little bit easy because it has these grass-like leaves. It's the only one really with linear leaves. The rest have triangular leaves at the base. So this is grass-leaved orach, Atriplex littoralis. So we have another coastal plant here with fleshy succulent leaves. This is Atriplex, another Atriplex species. This one is Atriplex portulacoides, sea purslane. And unlike the other plants we've looked at so far, this is perennial. So these mat of stems live for many years, and they're great traps for sediment that washes in with the tide. So over time, this tends to lift up the land surface. The roots of this plant store a lot of carbon in the in the soil. And so it provides a really important ecological role, and it's one of our tools, a nature-based solution for mitigating climate change. If we can protect these species, they can help raise the land surface. It is a food plant. We can, as with the other species, we can eat these rather large leaves. Apparently people fry them, they go like crisps. But if these plants and other plants are over-harvested, of course we're going to lose that ecological function and potentially lose our nature-based solution for combating climate change. So if you do harvest plants from the wild, do make sure you harvest them sustainably. So we've seen how some plants can cope with the challenges of living by the sea and the saline environment by adopting succulents. Perhaps surprisingly, some flowering plants actually grow beneath the sea. We think of marine plants as mostly algae, but here's one here that is a flowering plant, a seed plant, and it's growing in a marine environment. And normally it's growing beneath the sea, but here at low tide, very low tide, it's actually exposed on this mudflat. It's quite a rare species. It's got spreading stems with grass-like narrow leaves, hence its common name of eelgrass. This is Zostera knoltii. We can't see flowers on it very easily, but are insignificant, but we can see these nice linear leaves forming a grass-like sward here. And this is important because it's an ecologically interesting species. This is another food plant, but not food for us. It's really important food for the Brent geese that winter with us, having bred in the Arctic, and this is important refueling for them when they arrive.